Speak now to Caroline Farrow from the organisation Catholic Voices, who joins us via webcam. Caroline, thanks very much for joining us tonight on BBC News. The Pope got a 4-minute standing ovation at the end of this session. How much of a sign is that there is a recognition amongst all the bishops that something needs to change?
It's very definitely a recognition, but we have to remember that what Pope Francis is trying to do, he's not trying to change doctrine at all. He himself has said, I am a loyal son of the Church. And what he's trying to do is see if we can change pastoral practice, see if we can find a way of making everybody know that they are valued, accepted and loved, no matter who they are or what they identify as. If somebody identifies as being gay, then they are welcome and they are loved and they are accepted. But there's a fine line to draw between saying, yes, of course you are loved, of course you're welcomed, of course you're accepted, and not changing the teaching that we believe was handed down to us from Jesus Christ. And so it's a very tricky line that the Pope is trying to walk here.
I suppose, given the fact that homosexuality is illegal in some parts of the world, it's going to be very difficult, isn't it, to get pastoral practice everywhere to change at the same speed?
It's difficult, but it's certainly not impossible. And actually, the Catholic Church is at the forefront of trying to decriminalise homosexuality. We were supportive in the 1960s when it was decriminalised, rightly so, in the UK. And we're supportive at the recent reports to the UN. The cardinals have said that homosexual behaviour should not be criminalised because it is a matter of private morality. Therefore, I think once this has happened, once homosexuality has been decriminalised in those countries where they have very harsh and unfair penalties, then maybe pastoral practice can move forward. But let's be clear about this. Pastoral practice is not going to move to say gay marriage is acceptable or homosexual acts are acceptable. The Church's teaching is very clear, and that is that marriage is between a man and a woman. Sex can only happen in the context of a marriage, and sex must always be open to new life. That doesn't mean that every time you have sex you've got to have a baby, but you mustn't rule out the possibility either. You must stay open to God's beautiful plan and vision for mankind. And this is what the Family Synod has been about. It's a shame in a way it's been hijacked by these very peripheral issues, actually, because when you look at the other parts of the document, they had so much to say about the exploitation of women, arranged marriages, the elderly, the burdens on the elderly, economic burdens on the family, problems like addiction, all sorts of things that families have to face. And this is what the Synod wants to address and say, OK, how can we as a Catholic Church support the family and actually send out our message to everybody about this, the family being such a wonderful global, it's the building block of society. And we want to say, yes, you are loved and you are encouraged and you are welcome. But at the same time, there are things that we all do, and it's not just sexual things. There's things that we all do that take us away from God, and we want to draw everybody in, but really being clear about what is going to lead you to happiness and holiness.
These issues are due to be discussed again in about a year's time. How likely is it that the liberals and the traditionalists will have converged?
I think there will be people on both sides. You've got the liberals pushing for a change of doctrine, which is not going to happen. Francis is very clear, I'm a son of the Church. Doctrine has never, ever been up for grabs in this synod. It's just how we approach and accompany and walk with people. And again, I think the Conservatives, and again, I don't really like labelling people, but the Conservatives are very, very wary about seeing a change in pastoral practice, because they can see that sometimes if pastoral practice changes, then that can undermine what the Church essentially teaches. So it's finding a middle ground. And, one of the things that's being looked at and possibly will happen is making the annulment process easier. So the annulment process is where the Church looks at the facts of the marriage. It doesn't do anything to the marriage, but it actually says, for all sorts of reasons, this was never a valid marriage as we, the Catholic Church, understands it in the first place. At the moment, that process can be quite technical and complicated, and people aren't accessing the Church's natural justice on this. So the Church actually wants to throw open her doors and say, you know what, let's make this process easier for everyone. If you've had a problem in your marriage, let's see if we can look at this and how we can best walk with you together, and let's heal. There's been a lot of talks about healing of wounds, healing of divisions, and we know that divorce causes a big wound in the family, a big wound in society, and the Church wants us to be this field hospital that Francis talks about. It wants to bind people's wounds and help them and make them better, rather than just condemn them. So, I think it's going to be really positive, actually.